Thank you, Alan. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's an honor to be with all of you today. What a great event. And it's my pleasure to have a conversation with the Alan Rothenberg about the growth of our game in this country. Alan, we are just a little over 2 months away from hosting another World Cup in our country. Take me back to where this vision started for the 1994 World Cup and how we got to host that World Cup here in the United States.
You know, I've just written a book called The Big Bounce, which chronicles everything that you're talking about. But the interesting part is the first words in the book are, Peter Ueberroth changed my life and changed soccer. And that really was the main launching pad, because I was a soccer commissioner in the '84 Olympics. Soccer outdrew track and field. It shocked everybody, including me. And that's what led FIFA to feel that they could take a risk and bring their gem, the World Cup, to the United States, which they did. And they asked me in 1990 to take over running of the World Cup. And it's interesting, when you talk about where we were and where we are, I like to say, when I became president of the U.S. Soccer Federation, the offices were in a trailer in Colorado Springs because the Olympic Committee offered free space to any of their organizations. We had 6, maybe 8 employees. Next month, the Soccer Federation is going to be opening up a training site outside of Atlanta, $50 million effort. It's as good as any national training site in the world. And they now have a couple hundred plus employees and several hundred $million of revenues. So that's where we were, that's where we are.
What was it in 1984 that attributed to the success of soccer in those Olympic Games? And then what was the extension that led us to get the '94 World Cup?
Well, it's interesting because FIFA thinks that it was my genius operation. And the fact of the matter is, I was as surprised as anybody. And really, quite honestly, I think we had as much attendance as we did because people wanted to partake in the Olympic experience, and the then more popular sports were sold out, and or ticket prices. So we had huge capacity, and the ticket prices were quite reasonable. So I think we benefited from the fact that people who knew nothing about soccer but wanted to enjoy an Olympic experience, and they came. And as they say, FIFA thought I had something to do with it. I was surprised as anybody, but I didn't tell them. But it was really interesting because one of the things we did at the end was we had this great fireworks show. Actually, Peter was mad at me because we were not allowed in individual sports to do anything because he didn't want to detract from the final that David Walpert he had created. Anyway, we had interlocking of the FIFA logo with the Olympic logo, and I still remember the then president of FIFA, Joao Havelange, just looking up there with his eyes aglaze, couldn't believe it. And so that's really what led them to, as I say, take the risk, because we had attempted a couple times before to host the World Cup, and they gave us short shrift because they thought, well, you know, how can this non-soccer country possibly host a World Cup? And even when we started in early '90s, they had a backstop. They weren't sure it was going to be successful, and they had already talked to Germany about ready to take it over if we have to pull the plug. So we've come a long way since then.
I can remember in 1994, I was 18. I was playing for the under-20 national team, and I'll never forget sitting in the Rose Bowl watching the United States play Colombia and having a feeling that I'd never had before, which was I may be able to make a living out of this game. And sitting in a stadium like that and seeing the excitement, what was the plan and what were the conversations like? And when did you know that the '94 World Cup was going to be as successful as it was in this country?
At the beginning, we really weren't sure, but we did know that Americans love a big event. And so our focus initially was somehow make it clear this was going to be a big event. Unlike any FIFA World Cup before, we had celebrities galore. We had concerts, we had galas with big performers. The final draw, which up until that time had been just a draw, and okay, here's the groups and here's who's playing who. We had a huge spectacle the night before with James Brown and Smokey Robinson appearing, and then in the classic, the MC of the final draw was Robin Williams, who put on a show. I mean, people still go on YouTube to see it. And so those are some of the things we did just to make it clear this is a big event and you can't miss it. And when I knew it was going to be successful was in the summer of 1993, we created a tournament with the US, Brazil, Germany, and England. Called it the US Cup. We beat England, shocked everybody. We lost to Germany and Brazil, but we held our own. And equally important, we were able to do it on an organized basis with no hitches. And that's when not only did I feel confident, but that's interesting because that's when FIFA felt confident and said, you know, you're supposed to be creating a professional league. I think we're ready to do that now. And so that's when we started the initial operation to create a business plan and create a league, which ultimately became Major League Soccer.
Was that an obligation as part of winning the bid to host the World Cup?
Yes. My predecessor, who was in charge of the bid, he's the one that actually brought the World Cup to the United States, had promised FIFA that if we got the World Cup, we would create a Division I professional league. Because at that time, after the NASL had fallen aside, there was no top professional league. They wanted it to be simultaneous. The first thing I did when I inherited this, I flew to Zurich and I said, look, we're going to have our hands full just organizing a World Cup. We can't also organize a major league, and besides which, it's going to require a successful World Cup to create enough interest for a league to be successful, so let us do that later. So that's when they came and they said, okay, now's the time. So that's when we went to work on Major League Soccer.
I know that Kobe Jones is going to be up here in a little bit, and I was a fan of the '94 World Cup team. In your opinion, how integral was the success or relative success of our national team in 1994, and what impact did that have on the success of both the tournament and the credibility of launching Major League Soccer following the tournament?
It was vitally important. I think that had the team not been respectable, at least, if not successful, the growth of soccer is inevitable. I mean, it's the world sport, but it would have taken much more time to get where we are today. And so the fact that the team did as well as they did made all the difference in the world. You asked me before about, when did I know everything was going to be good? Was, first of all, when we upset Colombia, which at that time was a pre-tournament favorite to win it all. So on the pitch, that was sort of the turning point. Hey, we can hold our own. And then in some ways, the following week, we played Brazil, ultimate champion, on July 4th up at Stanford Stadium. And that's the first time I felt that American fans got the passion of the sport, because we all know how demonstrative the Brazilians are Well, we had an equal number of American fans, painted faces, scarves, jerseys, singing and dancing. I said, hey, they got it. And so on the field, it was Columbia for the fans and the support of the sport. It was, I think, that July 4th game.
Was there, I actually don't know the answer to this question, was there any relationship to the 94 World Cup in us being able to host the 1999 Women's World Cup?
Absolutely. What happened, we had already asked FIFA to allow us to host the 99 Women's World Cup. They gave lip service to having support for women's soccer, but they didn't really believe in it. So they said, okay, you can do it. You got to do it in the Northeast in small stadiums. And what happened after that, we said, okay, well, we want to do it. We'll do it under your terms. There had never been women's soccer in the Olympics before '96. We went to FIFA and said, can you go to the IOC and get women's soccer in the Olympics? And so they agreed. Our women were spectacular in '96, filled up the stadiums, great team, great people. And then we went to FIFA and said, we want to do it in the big stadiums like we did the men's tournament. And first they balked, and then ultimately, in so many words, they didn't say it, but looking at their faces and knowing their attitudes was, if you crazy Americans think you can do it, go ahead and do it. They gave us no support other than lip service support. And obviously, the '99 Women's World Cup really was the changing factor in women's soccer, but equally women's team sports. And obviously, the growth of women's soccer has just been spectacular. And actually, in some ways, the development of the women preceded the men in the sense that shortly after we came on at U.S. Soccer, they had the 1991 women's, at that time FIFA didn't even call it a World Cup, it was the M&M Mars World Championship. Anyway, our team won, and FIFA decided, I guess, that we could call it a World Cup. So after the fact, they changed it to the Women's World Cup. But so the women's team was growing in some ways faster than the men's team.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, I'll never forget, a lot of moments growing up as a soccer player, soccer fan. I never thought I'd be sitting here today after attending a World Cup, now having worked in the sport, played and worked in the sport for almost 30 years. And you think back to moments, you know, Brandy Chastain with the winning penalty kick, who will be up here in a minute as well. For women's sports, if you had to pick one moment from the '94 World Cup, that really where you said, that's gonna be it, and this sport can succeed in our country, what would it be?
Well, I think the success of the '94 World Cup kind of spoke for itself. And again, because the team was credible, got out of the group, played pretty evenly with the world champions, it made it clear that we're ready, we're here, and the fans obviously get it.
Did you ever think the league, Major League Soccer, would be as successful as it is today?
I wish I could say I was such a visionary and so clairvoyant that I could have predicted everything that's happened. What I did believe was it would be a long, slow build with some ups and downs, which is exactly what happened, and that there would be ultimate success. I mean, I did not sit there and say, wow, 30 years later, we're going to have 30 teams, and we're going to have other people knocking on the door to pay significant franchise fees to join the league. So no, I wish I could say I was that smart and that far-seeing, but no.
As you look towards the 2026 World Cup, you know, we spent a lot of time here talking about legacy, the legacy of the '84 Olympics, the legacy of the 1994 World Cup. We're about to host another World Cup. much different than it was when you hosted the World Cup. FIFA is coming in, and we have host committees that are getting ready to host games, including here in Los Angeles. In your mind, what would be a fitting legacy of the 2026 World Cup in relation to the game in this country?
Let me just go back. In 1990, we were at ground zero, let's say. By the end of 94, I think we were at ground 50 or 60. The rise of the sport has been continuous, so we're up close to level 90 or 100. And now I'm hopeful and believe that 26 is going to take us above ground level 100. What I see is more new fans, more excitement, bigger TV audiences, and let's talk about TV. No sport in America, and no college even in America, can make it financially without TV revenues, rights fees. The one place where right now we're not reaching the potential that we need to is in that. I'm looking forward to more fans, which means more eyeballs, which means greater interest on television. And I think that also the fact that there are so many more platforms now than there were. It's not just 3 networks when we started, but you know, and you got the big guys, the Amazons and the Apples and the Netflixes getting into live sports, and the fact that the one thing that fans insist on is live sports. They'll stream other things, but they want to see sports live. So I'm looking forward to a real breakthrough after 26, which converts, in my mind, to keeping more of our young American players from going to Europe, staying here, and are bringing in more of the international players that, 2 things. One is financially, we can afford them at their peak, not as they're end of their careers. And the other is the league, MLS, and NWSL, who's already there, will be a serious competitive league, because as you know, as a competitor, you want to play with the best. And so even if we had enough money, and we do, to bring players over in their prime, we're not yet considered to be a top-level league in competition. And so I think we'll elevate ourselves, and therefore you're going to see the continuing growth. And if we keep our best American players here, the other thing that is important for getting great fan recognition is a local hero. And so if we have some young American star staying here, not going abroad, that we can rally around. And let me go back in history. I mean, people forget it. In the mid-'70s, the NBA was actually in a position, literally, they had hired a bankruptcy attorney to see if the league should consider going through bankruptcy. And then along came Magic, along came Bird, along came Michael Jordan, and that really changed everything. So we need our Michael Jordan, we need our Magic Johnson, we need our Larry Bird, and we'll get them.
So we've talked a lot about the impact of the sport on a professional level. As we were walking up here, we talked about that soccer is the most popular sport among youth. The impact of '94 obviously had a great impact on, like you said, gave players to look up to, role models to look up to. What do you think that FIFA can do, and what is their obligation as they host a World Cup here to leave a lasting legacy on the youth, specifically in soccer for boys and girls?
Well, FIFA has asked every host committee to have a legacy program, and each of the cities has one of some more vibrant than others. But I backtracked to, again, back in the 90s, when we were first putting the organization of the '94 World Cup together, we had a planning session, and said, our mission will be to put on the greatest World Cup in history. And everybody was ready to walk out the door, and I said, time out. I don't want this to be like when the circus comes to town, everybody has a good time, and when they leave, the only thing left behind is elephant dung to be cleaned up. So we added to that mission statement to leave a legacy for the sport. And so we were, again, I think the first host country that required every one of the 9 cities to have a continuing effort, a legacy, and that's really been the foundation of everything we've done. I also would say this, that you know, I guess imitation is the greatest form of flattery, and we learned so much from the '84 Olympics. And one of the things we learned was, and Rich Perlman talked about it, the huge legacy that was left that is really what we're here talking about today. So we copied that. We were fortunate enough to have a $50 million plus surplus, and instead of just flittering it away, we created the U.S. Soccer Foundation, which last year had built 1,000 mini pitches around the country for in underserved communities, and had 1 million participants, and it's still growing. And obviously, U.S. Soccer is now getting heavily into their new foundation, the Play Forward Foundation. So that has continued, and it's great for the sport. You know, sport is interesting because with all the diverse nature of what's going on in our country now, sports one of the few things that is true community. When you go to a sporting event or when you're on a team, nobody's asking for your passport, your ID, you know, what religion or political affiliation you have. And you're learning healthy competition, and your teammates, or if you're at a sporting event, people around you, they could be a different color, they could be a different nationality, they could be anything, but everybody pulls together. And you know better than anybody, when a soccer match is over, you walk down and everybody shakes everybody's hand.
Or exchanges their shirt.
Yeah, exchanges shirt. And again, you don't ask them where they're from, and so whether it's your teammate or the opponent. And so that's the beauty of sport, and particularly soccer, because soccer is the international sport, so we probably have more representation of various ethnic backgrounds than any other sport.
Yeah. So as we get excuse me, as we get ready to wrap up here, we talked about '94, talked about the great moment with Brandy in 1999 and how pivotal the success was for the women's national team there. As we enter into this World Cup and we have players that are playing at some of the best clubs in the world, whereas in '94 they were playing just for their national team.
Right.
One, how pivotal is the success of our national team? And then follow that up with your prediction for how our national team is going to perform at this summer's World Cup.
Well, I'll take the latter first. Just so you know, I mean, you know the game. I'm doing it from a business standpoint. I never played it. I don't pretend to be a soccer expert from the playing standpoint. But before the '94 World Cup, we were in a group with Switzerland, Romania, and Colombia. And we all got together, and I agreed with it, that we could get through the group by beating Switzerland, getting a tie with Romania, and losing to Colombia. Well, we tied Switzerland, we lost to Romania, and we beat Colombia. So with that as a background, if you want me to tell you who I think is going to win, we'll take it with a grain of salt. I mean, I think everybody believes that Spain and France are the cream of the crop. Argentina, because they're the defending champion, but it's 4 years later. And there's always Germany and Portugal and England. And I want to go out on a limb. Every 4 years, the English fans get all excited. They're going to win the World Cup and bring their World Cup back to where it belongs. And every 4 years, they fall on their face. Upset. I'm picking England.
You got England to go all the way.
But, you know, I think Spain and France are clearly the cream of the crop.
Well, Alan, thank you for your time in front of everyone. I've said this to you personally, but thank you for your work in this sport. You've made a new generation of soccer fans, soccer players, soccer executives, and it really did start with you and your work and the team that you had back in '94. So, Alan Rothenberg, everybody.
Thanks, Chris.